Welcome to Turn the Dial podcast, hosted by Scott and Renee Comey. Scott and Renee are real estate industry experts, having reached the top 1% in the nation as both agents and brokerage owners. Their insights, ideas, and suggestions will help guide you to a place where achieving your life aspirations is fully possible.
Welcome to the show. We're going to be talking about working happy with Greg Kettner. And I actually just saw his mug that says happy. So that was perfect. I have a bee kind, but you can see my bee.
It's backwards.
Oh,
I can read it.
I can
It says happy. Yeah.
There you go.
Greg Kettner, if you haven't heard from him before, shame on you, but he's a keynote speaker, trainer, and coach who partners with organizations to increase their revenue, reduce employee stress, and create a culture of mental health mindfulness. He empowers and inspires audiences around the world to be the very best they can be. His passionate stories will engage you, make you laugh, and touch a tender part of your heart, too. His mission is to help 1 million people work happy so they can live the lives they deserve. Greg is a world-class connector who's had beers with Wayne Gretzky, shared the stage with Robin Williams, and almost knocked over Queen Elizabeth II. Sounds like a funny story. Organizations such as Coca-Cola, Ford, SAP, Remax, CISPRO, and the Vancouver 2010 Winter Olympics have worked with Greg to help create their own work-happy culture. So welcome back, Greg.
Great. Thanks, guys, for having me. I really appreciate it. Good to see you both. It's been a while.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, we're excited to have you. And Greg also just had me on his podcast. So definitely check out his podcast, the Work Happy podcast. Is that the official name of it? I just want to make sure I'm quoting it correctly. Yep. So Greg Kettner, Work Happy podcast. Check that out. And I think is that episode released yet? I'm curious.
It is not, but it will be.
All right. By the time this one gets
Thanks for the reminder. My ADD brain.
But yeah, no, it was just a subtle reminder that, like, gosh, Greg has become friends. Speaking of grabbing beers, you grab beers with Wayne Gretzky. I didn't hear my name in that list. Him and I have grabbed beers as well.
Oh, Scott Comey as well. I mean, everybody knows Scott Comey. Not everybody knows Wayne Gretzky.
Well, that might actually be true. But no, I love Wayne Gretzky. I love Wayne Gretzky. But no, we've got some awesome things that we want to talk about. And since I've known you, Greg, since we've known you, you have grown this Work Happy community. So I'm excited to have you back on the show. Yeah. I'm surprised it's taken this long, but it won't be next time. Next time, it's not going to be 2 years. We're going to make it a lot shorter than that. How have you been in general? Like, how have you been? What is new with your business?
What is new with my business? It's growing. We are getting to the goal of 1 million people. I think we only have 999,992 more to go.
Nice.
So we're well on our way.
Yeah.
And what's new with me? I'm 2 years older and I have 17 more pounds on me. So yay.
You know what? That tends to mean we're happy, right?
Hey.
Yeah, exactly.
You are what you eat. There you go. So you're
exactly.
Love it.
I wish happy pounds weighed less than regular pounds.
Well, yeah, no, the reason I bring that up is because, as I mentioned, I've known you now for a few years, and from the very first time I saw you speak in Michigan to now, it's been about 3 years from that very first moment that I saw you speak. And I know that your Work Happy business was kind of still growing and starting out, and you're kind of trying to figure out the ins and outs of your business at that point. But with talking with you recently, there's a lot of good things that have been coming. And like Renee just mentioned in your bio, you've got a lot of clients reaching out to you, and it just seems like it's been awesome. And I know it's needed in today's world.
Yeah. And that's what I really found over the last 3 years, right? Because when I started this whole thing in 2020, nobody knew what was going on, right? I knew that I thought, maybe I'll be working from home for, 30 days. That's what they said, 30 days and we'll be good.
Yeah.
Right. And so
COVID, yeah.
It's really transitioned. And I still appreciate Tony Rubelsky for putting me on that stage 3 years ago, because I got to meet you and a lot of other people. And then I saw you again back in November when we were all back in Kalamazoo. And so it really has grown. But I think there's just so much. I mean, we've all had time to reflect and what we want and where we need to go and who we need to be. And a lot of people coming out of this are still lonely. They're still stressed. And, the mental health aspect is really creeped up. And I think the biggest switch that I've done over the last 3 years is when I started this. I used to work in pro sports. I wanted to go back and help the sales guys take care of themselves, their mindsets to sell more product. But listening to my clients and the conversations I have outside of training and speaking and coaching, people just need tips and tricks on how to be happy, how to get in that mindset when we're in a funk, how to get out of it. And the big thing is mental health, right? It'll be interesting to see what the stats are going up, but I know even now, ER visits are up, especially, in the younger, teens to mid 20s are going up because it's something that we all struggle with.
Yeah.
And, 5 years ago, I didn't know how to talk about mental health. And disclaimer, I'm not an expert. I'm not a counselor. I'm not a doctor. I'm more of I guess, a can opener. And I'm able to have conversations with people. And when I say, hey, look, this is what our family has gone through. This is what I do when I'm having a horrible day.
Yeah.
It lets people know that, oh, I can talk to Greg too. It's a safe place. And so that's my mission now. Work happy with a huge focus on mental health.
Yeah. And I think that's an amazing point too, right? Just being able to take a topic that can feel taboo or inappropriate to discuss and say, hey, man, everyone has down days.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone has these thoughts and feelings at some time. Now, some might be more or worse than others at different times in their life or depending on what's going on, right? But making it really an open conversation, I think is really powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so important, right? Because there is so much misinformation,
Yeah.
a lot of stuff that I've learned, either from the vernacular, how to talk about it. You're not going to catch mental health by talking to somebody about it.
Right.
Um, and everybody has it. But I just read a study from Lyra Health. They're saying that 8 out of 10 employees still won't go talk to their manager. They
Mm,
won't go talk to HR because of the shame and the guilt, right? If you want to get a promotion, you're not going to go, hey, I suffer from anxiety.
yeah.
Yeah.
But if you have the right work happy culture and the right management team, you want those people to come and talk to you because you are a good person. You do excel. It's let's get you help. Let's have conversations. Let's talk to a counselor or a therapist or your doctor
Mm,
and take care of the anxiety because more than likely we can. But we just need to drop that wall and we're all the same. We all put our pants on the same way. We all have great days. We've all have crappy days.
yeah.
And let's be better together.
And in all honesty, in today's world, there's a pretty good chance that that manager or supervisor is having some similar challenges themselves, right? And might
Absolutely.
connect with you more than you might think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. 3 out of 5 adults are suffering at some level with mental health.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That,
So
that doesn't
it's a
surprise me
big
anymore.
number.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, so our audience with Turn the Dial coaching is mostly real estate industry. And
Yeah.
you mentioned like, hey, first you started out going pro sports and let me help people sell, and then going, hey, the big thing's mental health. Well, last year for a lot of realtors, it was a really slow year, right? We had some wonky
Mm.
things going on in the industry. And there are many agents finding themselves struggling with mental health or not being as motivated as a result of those exterior factors. What have you found to be good ways to turn around someone's motivation?
Mm.
It's a great question. Sometimes it's a hard question to answer for a person, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I've found that has worked for me, a couple of things, is look inward, right? And if we look inward and backwards, what was one of your better years? Or, if you're struggling and you lose a deal, it goes sideways, you're already signed like, no, we went a different direction. Look back at one of the bigger deals that you've had, right? That stands out. I sold a $4.5 million mansion. Here's how it went. But if we replay that in our head, right, it can get us out of those doldrums. So that's one way to do it. Another is self-care.
Mhm.
And I'm getting better at this. And some days I'm not. Last Monday was a crap day. I got up, I went to the gym, I did my breathing, I did my meditation, I read, and then I started my day, and nothing was going right. And I'm like, all right, what would the old Greg do? The old Greg would probably have a glass of wine, take a nap. So what I did, I was like, all right, this day is not working. I went back to the gym and I started my whole day again. I'm like, okay, I'm doing a reboot. And I did everything again like I did at 5 o'clock in the morning, but now it's 11 o'clock. And I got back into the rhythm, and by 12:30, I was like, okay, this is good. Kind of put it behind me. So that's number two is mindset and taking care of yourself. Because if you don't take care of yourself, who is going to take care of you, right? Chances
Yeah.
are we all had really good people that we work with. I imagine working for you guys would have been great, but I've had bosses that don't care at all. What's your number? How many calls did you make? Where are
Yeah.
your sales? And they don't care about Greg Kettner. So if we take care of ourselves, and then the last thing is surround yourself with people. The number one determinant for people who live and work happy are the friends that they have.
Yeah.
Right. So if you've got buddies in real estate that you can lean on and call up and say, hey, I'm struggling. Let's go for a coffee, or what do you do? But just having that personal connection, and don't text, don't email somebody. Pick up the phone, go old school and have a conversation. I remember meeting you or seeing you again, Scott, in Kalamazoo. Tony and I were having a conversation in the lobby, and you walked by, and I got this massive big bear hug from you. I was like, oh man, it feels so good, right? It had been at least 2 years or a year since I'd seen you, but just that human connection can completely change your mindset.
Yeah, it's, you said so many things that were resonating with me. For one, I want to go back to you rebooted your day when you were having a bad day and you went to the gym. So Renee and I used to have this. I kind of envisioned back in the day that I had a reset button on the back of my neck. I'm a robot, right? And I need to reset myself. And so whenever I was having a bad day, I'm talking like 15 years ago, I would literally tap the back of my neck, and it was almost like what you said. It was like, you know what? It's a reset. I'm going to restart my whole day all over again. I like that you said you went back to the gym, because it keeps you focused off of the negative. And I know for me, somebody who has suffered from mental challenges in the past, you can spiral, right? If you just kind of sit and dwell on what's going wrong and not focus on how can we move forward, that can change everything. And then I like that you said surround yourself with people. I know a lot of times the anxiety, the stress, the challenges that we have are our own makeup based on who we're surrounding ourselves with, right? If we've got negative people in our lives, or we focus on negative stuff like watching the news all the time, it can be very disheartening, and it can help us spiral in the wrong direction. So I think making sure that you're with the right people, and I was going to add something too, Greg, and I don't know if this plugs into any of those three that you just mentioned, but social media, it can be a very negative thing if you're not in a good mindset, if your business is down, if your real estate business is down, and it seems like you're on social media and all of your buddies at the office, they all have deals going on. I just closed another one. I just sold this for over asking price. And it just seems like everything's going right. But for you, everything's going wrong. I can promise you, not everything's going right in those agents' lives, because we coach a lot of them,
Right.
And though they might be on a good streak business-wise, there might be other things that are suffering. And so you got to look at Facebook as just
a highlight reel.
It's a highlight reel. Not everybody
exactly
go
the
on
best
to
of the
Facebook
best
and say, hey, everybody, I'm struggling from mental health, right? That's just not something I'm going to do. So it's usually our best stuff that we're on there. So take it with a grain of salt is what I was going to say.
No, absolutely. And you're not going to go and post, oh, I haven't sold a house in 4 months, but pick me as your realtor. Right.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
like you said, chances are those people who are thriving, like, oh, I just closed another one. They don't say the people's names or the date or how much or when it closed. It could have been 2 years ago.
That's true.
Right.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of that. And not that I've been guilty of it, but an example, 5 years ago, it got really cold here in Walla Walla and warmed up and then froze. And our street in front of our house was a sheet of ice. And so I went out and put on my hockey skates and my helmet and my gloves and my stick and just started just skating up and down the street with a puck. And then Rachel came out and took a picture of it. Right. Well, 10 days ago, it was really cold here again. And I thought of that picture. I'm like, oh, I should post about this. I'm like, hey, here's what you can do when it's really cold and people are miserable about the weather. I went out and played hockey. And people are like, oh, I can't believe you did that yesterday. And I was like, oh no. It was 5 years ago, right? So
Right.
that's the internet. It's a necessary evil. But you were so right. The more we doom scroll, the worse we get in our headspace.
Yep. And you were 17 pounds lighter in that photo too, right?
Right? Yeah. There's AI that can shrink them now.
Well, what if so maybe an agent is struggling themselves. That's one element that we just talked about. But what if an agent, I know this happens a lot, I've seen it. Maybe they themselves are doing okay. Their business is going pretty good, but they have a buddy in the office that's struggling. And I know sometimes we almost feel guilty as the agent that's doing okay. But we have colleagues. We have a lot of colleagues that are struggling and they can't seem to get their business going, and they're kind of unmotivated and they're kind of depressed. Any thoughts on how we can help our friends and colleagues?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing for me, and one of the biggest motivators in happiness is when we serve others, when we give, right? We get back. And it might not be a deal, but if you have a friend that is struggling, right, reach out to them and say, hey, how are things going? How can I help? Is there anything that I can do, right? Because I've got 3 deals that closed this week. So I don't need the money, or I don't need this, or I don't need that. But reach out to your friends and say, hey, how can I help? Take them for a coffee. Or you can even do, if you're not in the same vicinity, start on your real estate team, start a group chat, like on I don't know, a Sunday night or whatnot, right?
Yeah.
And just in that way, you can talk about other stuff, not real estate, right? Maybe your friend's struggling with their relationship, or maybe their kids or their finances, and that's not going to come up in a conversation with like, hey, how's real estate? Right? If you ask somebody, hey, how are you really doing? I've got time. Let's have a conversation. And then that really connects you, and it helps you, because if I'm helping you, Scott or Renee, right? I feel good by helping, and it helps you knowing that, oh, Greg's been in the same boat before. Here's what he's done. Maybe I should try this. So that's one thing. And another thing I would encourage when people are struggling is just to reach out, because a lot of times people aren't going to be on social media going, hey, I'm really struggling with my mental health and I haven't sold a house in 3 months.
Right.
But if you see somebody's pattern change, right? If they're posting videos every single day and all of a sudden they're not doing it anymore, chances are that something else in their life has changed and they don't have time, or they don't feel in the right headspace to make that video. So again, call them up and say, hey, I noticed I haven't seen your videos. What's going on?
Yeah.
And I don't know about you guys, but I've done this a lot of times. Hey, how are things going? People are like, oh, good. Ask that question again and say, how are you really doing?
Yeah.
I've got time. I would love to have a conversation with you, right? And that, again, it drops the bar, and the person is like, oh, yeah, she wants to talk to me. He's not just lip service.
Yeah. No, that's so true.
Yeah, it's a great point, right? Because we go on the automatic. It's like when you're going through the grocery store and they're like paper or plastic, and you're like, yeah, because you didn't really hear, right? It's that fine answer. And then, hey, how are you really doing? And I love your point on reaching out when you see someone's maybe behavior change, because that's a lot of what we do when we're struggling, right? Is we might retreat. It might not be that we're around the wrong people. It might be that we're around no people because we want to wallow, right? You mentioned I'll have a glass of wine and take a nap, right? Like that's a wallow. And we do it as humans, right? When we don't want to deal with the hard stuff. It was way harder for you to say, I'm going to reboot and I'm going to go to the gym a second time. That took a lot of energy to do, right? And noticing that for others could be helpful. Not pressuring them, not saying you got to go to the gym again, right?
Yeah, but whatever it is, right? Or if your day's totally gone sideways, do something that you love.
Yeah.
I mean, probably not retail therapy, because that costs money. But maybe it is going out for a walk. I have a friend, he's an entrepreneur, and when he has a stressful day and things aren't going well, he lives on a ski hill, right? So slap on his skis and he'll take 3 or 4 runs.
Yeah.
And those 3 or 4 runs gets air in his lungs, it refreshes his brain. He forgets about work because he's in brand new 8 inches of powder, and he loves life. Comes back to his desk, he started over again, he's charged, he's ready to go.
Yeah. And it's maybe keeping those things in your back pocket, right? Because when you are feeling down, you don't really want to do those. But when you go ski or go for a walk or go do one of these things, you're going to feel better. I don't know why we reject it so hard, right? Or like someone goes to invite you and
Well,
you're
I
like,
think
oh, I'm not going to show up, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
I think the reason why we don't think of doing those things and we tend to wallow is because a lot of us, myself included at times, feels like I'm the only one that's struggling with life.
Mm,
I'm the only one that's struggling with not enough sales. I'm the only one that's struggling in my relationship or struggling with my kids' finances.
yeah.
And there's never been a time where I've had a conversation with somebody that I haven't gone through the same thing that they're going through.
Yeah.
Right. Scott, you and I have had many conversations.
Yeah.
And the conversation's like, oh man, being an entrepreneur and it's just me and my wife, and it's just me on my end. It can be tough at times. And so you're not alone. You're listening. If you have those bad days, you're not alone. Those are normal. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just how do we, instead of retreating and being by ourselves, how do we restart or how do we reach out? Because when we reach out, we'll find so many people are there to help us and to hold us and to uplift us.
Yeah. So is it any different thinking about a sales professional, and in our case, it's real estate, but it could be any sales
Yeah.
professional, when they are helping manage their clients' anxiety, right? With real estate, moving's stressful.
Yeah.
There's a lot of elements that could be stressful. Your house isn't selling as fast as you thought it would, or your offer's not getting accepted. But also just having your house clean every day for people to come walk through it, things like that, right? Stressful. Um,
Yeah.
any kind of tips or tricks when you think about that?
Yeah, I think, and I've never sold real estate, but I've bought places before, and
Mhm.
it can be stressful, especially for a
Mhm.
first time buyer, right? Or maybe this is the first time you're buying a house with a family,
Mhm.
right? I think as a real estate agent, if you walk them through, this might come up, and just let them know I'm here to help you the whole way. If you are feeling like this is, it's a stress for you, and you're struggling with the cleaning, let me know, right? Because you
Yeah.
might know somebody that can come in one off and help them out. But I think just setting expectations in the client journey has really been helpful for me in my sales career, right? I was selling software for many years, and some of the deals, a short deal could be 30 days, a long deal could be a year and a half,
Oh, wow.
right? So letting the client that you're there with them and setting the expectations and say, you know what, this isn't going to be four days. It's going to be 4 months by the time we map everything out, the contract, legal, all this kind of stuff. So I think being there for them and not for the sale, and it goes back to serving, right? Yes,
Yep.
we need the money because that's what pays our mortgage. But when you bring on a client and you let them know that they are the number one concern and not the commission check,
For sure.
that builds a friendship, that builds trust, and that's going to be a client for life. And who knows how many referrals you're going to get down the road from that.
Yeah. And I'm sure just as in, you said software sales, right?
Yep.
Just as in software sales, that's a longer life cycle. Real estate sales is too. Not every deal will come to a successful transaction.
Yeah.
Just doesn't
Yep.
always happen, for whatever reason. Things come up. Maybe a life circumstance changes in the middle. Someone changes a job or gets relocated, right? Whatever that is. But when you serve because that's what they need, I feel like it's not just making that client a lifetime client, but they're going to want to tell everyone else about that. Maybe they aren't
Absolutely.
going to finish a transaction with you, but three of their friends are because of the way you approached them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Because a client in your industry, right? If you're there to serve them,
Mhm.
and unfortunately, maybe their mom or their dad passes away, right? And you find out about it, and you're the one sending a sympathy card. You're the one bringing baked cookies. That story is going to be told again and again. Oh, who sold your house? Oh, Renee sold my house. But you know what? When my mom passed away, she came over, brought cookies. She sent a
Yep.
sympathy card, and that goes so many miles. It's not only the right thing to do; it's the best thing to do for business
Yeah.
because people do business, and this people they know, like, and trust.
Mhm.
And when we serve, why would I go somewhere else?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's almost like you have to not think about your clients as a dollar sign, as a commission check. You need to look at them as real people that have real feelings, and they're going to go through life situations and circumstances like we all do. And I love that. When a commission check is not involved, I'm going to do the right thing, right, for these people. As I hear that their cat passed away or their grandma or passed away or whoever it might have been, I love that. That's great.
People need to be seen.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, As you know from the last time, almost 2 years ago that we had you on the show, we have a couple of final wrap-up questions. And I actually have a bonus wrap-up question that I just thought of that I'm going to ask you first.
Ooh.
And it is this. So Greg lives in Walla Walla, Washington.
Washington.
And so if you don't know where that is, this is still not going to help you after I tell you this, but it's near wine country in Washington. And if you've not had Washington wine, then you are missing out. So I'll say that. But since you mentioned that you drink wine, Greg, what is your favorite type of wine? I thought I'd ask you that.
My favorite is Malbec.
Oh, nice.
I started out as a Syrah because that's the bottle I could afford. It was like $10 in Vancouver. I'm like, oh, this is pretty good.
Yeah.
And then one night I went out and I had a little bit more money. I bought a bottle of Malbec and I fell in love with Malbec and changed. But yeah, but the thing, and just quickly on the Walla Walla wine industry here, we have about 200 wineries in Walla Walla, and our slogan is go to Napa for your auto parts, Walla Walla for the wine. Which I'm sure Napa hates, Napa Valley. But what is really cool about our community, the wine community, is you'll never hear anybody going, that's not a great wine. All you'll hear is this is what makes our wine, we think, the best, right? And so it's everybody together, and I'm sure it's the same in real estate, right? You're all trying to sell houses, but again, collectively, we're better together. I can't sell everybody. Not everybody likes Greg Kettner. Not everybody likes Work Happy, right? But for those who do, they are there. And for you or anybody listening, people want to buy from you because of you. And when we work together and we don't put each other down, when we hold each other up, it's so much better for everybody.
Love it. So if you're going to Washington State or the Seattle area, you put on your list of things to do, because it might not come up in a Google search. If you like wine, go taste the wine, because there's multiple places throughout the state that you can get some good wine. All right.
And if you need a tour guide, let me know.
Yeah. And he'll just charge you in wine.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So back to my real questions. I do want to know this answer. And more, this is selfish because Renee and I are getting ready to wrap up a show that we're watching right now, and we need a new one. So what is a TV show maybe that you and your wife, or just you are currently watching?
Hands down, Better Call Saul.
What is it?
I don't know if you watched Breaking Bad, but Better Call Saul is a prequel with
Okay.
Bob Odenkirk. I had the pleasure of doing a stand-up comedy show with him one night in Calgary. He showed up and I was MC, and so we got to hang out for a night. But it's the fourth time I've been watching it. But it's the lawyer down on his luck and how he chooses to do the right thing, or he has the right. I don't know. Anyway, I won't ruin it. But he's a down on his luck lawyer and how he gets everything to work. But yeah, Better Call Saul, I would recommend highly. What are you guys watching?
Man,
or finishing up
things. So
what we are finishing up though is a Married at First Sight, and we have just the last one to watch.
Yeah, Married at First Sight. Okay. It's a reality show.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we're also watching. And why do I always forget the one with the guy who's a #1 FBI's most wanted list? What is that show? Blacklist. Yeah, we still have a few left of that one. Yeah. That was recommended by one of our guests a long time ago, and we started watching it after it was recommended, and it's been awesome. So
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah. All right. And when it comes to personal growth, I know you're a big reader. I know obviously you have your own podcast, but you also listen to podcasts. What's either a good book that you've read recently or a podcast that you've listened to that you want to just share with our audience?
Well, other than Turn the Dial Up, or Turn the Dial podcast.
Yeah.
Two that I've found recently that have been very helpful is Rob Dial, the Mindset Mentor.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's more short snippets, anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes. But just it's a daily thing that I can listen to. And that's another thing I'll do if I have a bad day. I'll go back and I'll listen to a podcast that motivates me. That and Mel Robbins. I really, really appreciate Mel. Being a male, I appreciate the female perspective.
Yeah.
And she's not over the top on the swear words, but when it's needed, like pepper, she'll drop an F-bomb. But she always just gives such practical advice, and she brings on experts. And it's really helped me. in my mindset. So those are the two, and then those are two podcasts, and then books. And I chose my friends because they're awesome. But Tia Graham, Be a Happy Leader.
Nice.
This would be great for anybody in real estate. It's how do you lead, whether you have assistants or people under you, or just be a leader in the space of real estate. And then the other one is by here we go, Paul Epstein, Better Decisions Faster. I know Matthew McConaughey read a book, Green Light,
Yes.
about green, red, yellow lights. His is similar, but in the business world, right? If we have a decision we need to make, how do we make that faster and how do we make it right? So both Better Decisions Faster and Be a Happy Leader are two great books that I've read and reread, and they're dog-eared and everything else.
Nice. That's when you know it's a good book.
Yeah.
All right. And then obviously I want to help you in any way. We want to help you in any way that we can get more business, be put in front of the right people. So
Get to 1 million people.
get
that
to
you've
1 million
impacted.
people. Yeah. It's an important thing in today's world. And so what's the best referral for you, whether it be a business type, a position at a company? How can we best refer you, or how can our audience best refer you?
Two ways. You can give me, send me your credit card and the 3 digits on the back.
Nice.
That would be helpful. but seriously, a good referral for me is a personal introduction via email to some organization who has a similar need, where your people are stressed. They don't know how to talk about mental health. They don't know how to be resilient. They don't know how to work happy. But what I found is an email introduction, and typically where I'm headed, it's either the HR director or the CEO. Because a lot of these CEOs are up at the top. They're stressed. They're trying to figure out, hey, I'm stressed. How do I figure it out? But how do I do that for my clients? I was talking to one group up in Bellingham a while back, and they brought me in to talk to their management team. And as I was sharing the story, my message is always reach out. Reach out. If you're struggling, reach out to somebody else who's struggling. And while I was speaking, I noticed the CEO at the back of the room, and he had tears in his eyes. And so I went up to him afterwards and I said, hey, thanks again. Anything I said, if you want to have a conversation offline, because I noticed you were crying a bit. He says, no, he goes, I'll tell you right now, Greg. He goes, I brought you in to talk to my people so that when they were struggling, they could reach out. But your talk brought something up. And he goes, I lost my brother to suicide when I was 16. And he says, I haven't dealt with it yet. I thought I had, right? Like guys my age, 50, and you, Scott, and you, Renee, we're above 25, right? So back in the day, it was suck it up, don't cry,
right,
deal with it and move on. And he said, what this did for me is it taught me that I need to go get help and talk this through, right? So no matter where you are on that scale, people who need help and who want to reach out, I'm the guy that they can talk to. I can either come in and speak to them or do some training. How do we talk about mental health? How do we work happy? But I've got people in my back pocket that I'm saying, if you're struggling with this, you need to call this counselor, or you need to call this doctor, or you need to reach out to this website, because we all deserve the best lives. And when we talk about it and when we share our experiences, everybody's better at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had Greg come out when we used to own a brokerage in the Seattle market. We had Greg come out and talk to our agents and our staff at one of
that was fun.
Our big sales rallies. Yeah, that was a few years back, and I was honest. If I'm just being totally honest, I was surprised at the response from your session that you did with us in terms of how many of our people came up to me and said, "Thank you for bringing him here." And because you're not an industry person, a lot of times agents want like the next best shiny object. How can I get rich quick? Right? Like that's the speaker they want to listen to. And we've had some of those types of people in the past, but yours, which is not how do you get rich quick, but more rather, how do I just help myself be a better person internally, was received so much better. So if you're listening to this podcast right now, and you're part of an office, an agent, a staff member, the owner of the office, you may not even know that the people in your office need the help, I guess is what I'm trying to say, because I didn't. Yeah. I did not. We just brought him in because, again, I was somebody that connected well with Greg. He was funny. I thought he'd be good for our audience to kind of lighten the mood. And little did I know the impact you would make on so many lives. It was huge. So,
well, thank you for that. And I appreciate those kind words. I'm humbled by it, but that's what motivates me. That's what makes me work happy when I hear things like that. And, I know there's at least 3 people from that event that I still keep in touch with.
Yeah.
One person lost a child to suicide.
Mhm.
And I've gotten referral business out of that as well too. Not because I asked for it, but people just said, "Hey, we need this in our organization as well too," right? And
Yeah.
that's another key thing. When somebody is struggling, I put it in my calendar, and I can't reach out to everybody, but for those 3 people, I probably send an email or a phone call every 3 or 4 months and just, "Hey, how's your headspace? What's going on?"
Yeah.
Right? And it's just great because now I have friends and not clients.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
Man, I
connected
so
you
love
touched
that.
their heart.
So if
Yeah.
somebody does have a referral for you, or they have a thought of somebody they want to put you in connection with, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Probably my website or LinkedIn. I live on LinkedIn. It used to be Facebook. It never was Twitter because that's the dumpster fire of social media. But yeah, either my website, gregkettner.com, or Greg Kettner on LinkedIn. As far as I know, last time I checked, I'm the only Greg Kettner on LinkedIn.
Sounds good. And I don't think Twitter exists anymore, right? It's X.
X. Yeah.
Or X or whatever it is now.
Yeah.
It's X'd out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
X'd out.
exactly. And it's even like a black little logo app.
Yeah.
Yeah. They went from a cute little blue bird to
I
X.
know.
X. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for spending time with us today. Hopefully, if you were listening, you heard something that resonated with you. Maybe it's that you need to reboot your day or take some time for self care. Maybe you need a can opener in your life, like Greg, just someone who will say, "How are you doing?" Wait, no. How are you really doing? Or maybe you can be that person for someone else.
Thanks so much, Greg, for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate your friendship, Scott and Renee, and I appreciate what you're doing, right? Because being in sales and being in real estate, especially right now, is not an easy thing. But you guys are bright, shining lights. You're leading the way, and I can't thank you enough for having me on and for being my friends. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Turn the Dial Podcast. Please check us out on Facebook or TikTok at Turn the Dial Coaching. We would also love for you to subscribe to our show and rate us on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen. For more information on our coaching programs, please go to turnthedialcoaching.com. Thanks for listening.